Okay, the first thing that we're gonna do today is make our green bean casserole. So the first thing you need to do is turn the oven on to broil and then boil a large pot of water on medium heat. Then from there, we're going to make our topping made with a half cup of panko breadcrumbs, a quarter cup of Parmesan cheese. We're gonna do a quarter teaspoon of salt, a quarter cup of parsley, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So I'm going to start by chopping up the parsley first. You just want to rough chop it, pretty much just make it so you don't see the full leaf. You can do that really quick. There you go. So it should look something along these lines. So first comes first, we're going to dump in those panko breadcrumbs, then the Parmesan cheese. Then we're gonna get our salt in there. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And last, we throw in the parsley. All right, from there, just stir. Mix it together until it's thoroughly combined. It should be a little clumpy, not extremely liquidy, but just enough that when you do put it in the oven and on top of the green beans later, it'll become nice and crusty and toasty and give you that nice crunchy flavor that normally the fried onions would give you in a regular traditional green bean casserole recipe. All right, so it should look something like that. So now what you need to do is cut your green beans because we're not using canned or frozen green beans. We're using some nice fresh green beans. So what you want to do, take your green bean once it's washed, and you want to use scissors and clip off the ends so that they are nice and flat. And then you want to half it. Let me do this over, like that, and then it goes into the bowl. So I'll do that again so you guys can see it. I'm gonna put the bowl back actually. So end, half. End, half. I got one more guy in here. If you have a little one like this, that's perfectly fine. Just trim it so you get that little garbage end off as well as the little stem. And then you don't have to clip it in half, you can just throw it in there. Then what you want to do is blanch these guys, which means that you're gonna quick boil them. For about 3 to 5 minutes, I normally do about 5 minutes just because that seems to be the perfect amount of crunch and the perfect amount of softness as well. All right, so now we need to strain these green beans. Careful not to pour too fast or towards yourself. You don't wanna burn yourself as I stand here in my crop top. Once you strain them completely, you then want to pour them into an ice bath. I didn't have any ice, so I just put a big pot of water in my fridge and I let it cool for about an hour. You don't have to do it for an hour. It probably takes about 20-30 minutes for the water to get cool, but you leave them in this ice bath so they stop cooking. I like to play with them a little bit, make sure that they all get nice and cool. And then from there, you put them back in the pot that you had blanched them in. But you have to strain it first again. So what putting them in the ice bath does for that very few minutes is stops the cooking process. If you feel like the string beans are a little too wet, even after you strain them, which is how I feel right now, you can pat dry them before you throw them back into that pot. So what I do is I just take 2 paper towels and I remove all of that excess water. Okay. Now they're nice and dry. They go back in this pot. And we move on. So now that the green beans have been blanched and they went into their ice bath and they're sitting in the other pot, now it's time to get the onions and the mushrooms ready. So this is the base of that sauce that you'll be making. You want a half of a large onion. So I'm just chopping up a quarter right now because I already have another quarter chopped up for us. You want to rough chop this, which means that really it doesn't need to look pretty or anything like that. It just needs to be in square or dice shapes and small enough that it will actually cook within 5 minutes and become soft in that amount of time. So I'm going to just move that to the side for now. Then with the mushrooms, so these are Bella mushrooms. They have more flavor than just white mushrooms, so I do suggest you get baby Bella mushrooms. I like to flip them upside down and chop them. Make sure you have a sharp knife when you do this, and you go a little bit slower so you don't actually chop your own hand. The ones that have less of a stem are definitely a lot easier to chop. Got a couple more. So you just want to slice them. So they come out like little mushrooms. So then from here, we will take all of our ingredients. And I have a medium saucepan set on medium heat on the stove, and we will cook everything in the saucepan. Let's dump these veggies into the hot saucepan. You want to saute these for about 10 to 15 minutes. It really relies on the mushrooms. You want the mushrooms to release all of their liquid, so you will see a very watery, liquidy base in the saucepan. And that's how you know that your vegetables are softened and ready to start making the actual gravy mixture. All right, so from here we are going to make our gravy, where we have the onions and the mushrooms already cooking in the saucepan. It's on medium heat. Again, the mushrooms need to release all of that liquid, so that this way you can have that nice watery base in order to start the gravy with. From there, what I'm going to do is put in flour, milk, and our spices, so that includes salt, pepper, and nutmeg. From there, we're going to mix everything until it becomes a nice, hearty, thick gravy, which is consistent with the cream of mushroom soup. So from here, tablespoon by tablespoon, you want to add in the flour. It's going to get really, really thick and chunky looking and almost looks like glue, but that's okay because the milk will then make it the gravy that you're looking for. So you just want to mix in the flour just enough that you don't see any of the flour clumps. But also, you're going to notice that the mushrooms and onions will be sticking to the base of the pan, and that's okay, but just work as quick as possible. You'll notice that all of that excess moisture from the mushrooms that we wanted when they were sauteing is now being eaten up. All right, we got one more. So now you have this chunky, floury mess. Does not look too delicious, but we're going to turn up the stove to medium-high heat. And we are going to add in our milk, 1/3 of a cup at a time. So this is now when we get that really nice creamy texture that we're looking for. And if you can, use a soft spatula like I'm using with this little flexible rubber, because it'll help scrape off everything from the bottom of the pan. So now let's assemble this dish. We're going to take our green beans that have been sitting out. I have two 2-pound tins to go. I have a Friendsgiving tonight, so I'm bringing this there. And then we have the cream of mushroom type gravy that we just made. What you want to do is take the green beans, layer them on the bottom. Okay. Like this. And then you take the gravy and you toss it on top. This is where it gets a little messy, and I'm a messy person to begin with, so food gets everywhere. Make sure that it covers most of the green beans before you put on another layer of green beans. And you keep doing that essentially until you get to the top, and then that is when you put on the panko breadcrumb mixture, which gives it that nice crunchy flavor that you get from those fried onions normally. Okay, I'll do one more layer. Perfect. Then I'm going to put a little bit more of the gravy on top. And that is when you take your panko breadcrumb mixture. This is the best part. This is so flavorful and makes it so good. You throw this on top. I pat it down just a little bit so it stays in the tin. So I hope you enjoyed the recipes that we made today. As you can tell, they're fairly easy to make. The green bean casserole is a little bit more complex in comparison to the candy yams and the apple tart pie, but all of them are really delicious and really nutritious dense, so I hope that you enjoy them and bring them to some of your events this holiday season.